When you save on auto insurance for driving safe with USAA Safe Pilot, you'll feel like a big deal, even in a traffic jam. Save up to 30% with USAA Safe Pilot. Restrictions apply.
Hello and welcome to the Corner Flag. United have a trophy. I repeat, after 6 years, United have a trophy. This is episode 204. Welcome everybody to episode 204 of the Corner Flag. Mukesh Manjunath, United have a trophy.
I know, I can see the beaming smile on your face. Congratulations. It must feel really good after 6 years and many defeats, I think. Many final defeats.
I mean, yeah, fine. It was one defeat. I think it was against Villarreal under Ole. That was the issue. But apart from that, we were fine. You don't have to rub it in, man.
And second place finishes. I'm saying it's a good feeling. I'm saying it's finally a letting go. And I'm glad I can see the happiness on your face. It was a great game from United's perspective. Manchester United's perspective. It was a clean win. They were barely ever troubled. I think it was a great, good game, good final.
It surprised me that I was watching Man United play the final. I was not expecting that at all. There is still a little bit of PTSD living in my brain. I do not expect United to win trophies, win these big games. But somewhere you kind of realize that, it's Newcastle, even though they're on the up now with the new ownership and with the way Eddie Howe has them playing. With the form United are in, Man United at least, there should be a routine victory. But again, in the past with Man United, that's never been the case. No victory has ever been a routine victory, especially in the big games, in the cup finals. Oh, it felt so good.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the fact that under the new manager, progress has come quietly and slowly. And, it's sort of built to this moment. When the final had something, it was one of those classic finals, in terms of a little bit of this and that, but nothing really big about it.
Yeah.
But it just came about, it happened.
Yeah.
And I think even Erik Ten Hag barely celebrated in the end. I think, was it Dalot who was sort of jumping up and down in the end? And he's like, dude, this is this attitude of, okay, it's a job, we came here, we finished it, now let's go back, there's more work to do.
Which is weird because when the final whistle went off and Dalot was next to him and he was jumping around and he went to hug Ten Hag and Ten Hag was very awkward and just gave him a handshake and sent him off. That was very muted of him. But later on, did you see him do the dance with Lisandro?
I know,
and
that had such the dad is being forced to dance with the daughter ki shadi energy. It was so awkward. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was very good. But I think inherently he's very muted about this. I think the way this kind of energy feels like, it doesn't feel like a West Ham won a trophy. It feels like the first of many to come, or he has set his bar higher.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great energy to take away from a final where this is probably one of the first of many finals, and I think that energy from Erik Ten Hag was very clear.
Correct.
So that I think is great.
In fact, just earlier today, as we were walking into the studio, the United website and app basically sent a notification that Erik Ten Hag has actually penned an open letter to the United fans following the victory, which was really nice. So I read it while we were walking up, and there was essentially the same sentiment that you just spoke about over here, which is, he talks about how the fans have been very, very important. The bond between the players and the fans is strengthening day by day. How the players and the staff appreciate the noise that the fans make and how it spurs them on to do better. But he also said that while this is a great achievement and that we've got our hands on our first trophy of the season, we do not stop here. Our job is to deliver over and over again, and we are already looking forward to the next game, which is West Ham in the midweek in the FA Cup. So that's another trophy that we are in the running for. We can realistically get as well. And he said that, we are back at Carrington today. We are going to train and we are not going to let our standards drop. So I think overall his demeanor has been really, really refreshing. He's not somebody who's going to rest on his laurels at Hardy's. But it just feels so good.
I know, I can imagine. I think you should really take it in, because what I liked is that I think when you're as a neutral, when you're watching a final, you want it to be this exciting affair, much like the World Cup final was.
Yeah.
But I think when your favorite team is in the final, you want it to be a just convincing victory, just to stamp of authority. You don't want it to feel like, we got slightly lucky in the 90th minute. You want it to feel like we would have won that game even if we were a man down, even if they had an extra player. I think that's the kind of final it felt. There wasn't, if you look at it, I think there wasn't anything remarkable in that. you just take away the win. You don't take away an incident. It wasn't defined. It wasn't marred by any official incident, which I think is a great final to have as a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start off by talking about Casemiro, because he's the one who got the first goal. Firstly, spectacular free kick by Luke Shaw.
Yep.
His range of passing has gotten so much better over the last few years, and even more so under Ten Hag. Puts in a fantastic ball, lovely header by Casemiro. And we all were thinking this, right? Like, is Loris Karius going to fuck up? We'll speak more in detail about Karius later, but again, like in this goal, there's nothing Karius could have done. It was just a perfectly executed free kick routine, and he is such an integral player. Like, he has become such a fantastic signing for United. And I remember when he was signed, everybody was very skeptical about him. They were like, oh, he's 30 years old. His prime is over. He hit his peak years at Real Madrid. He won everything there. He's just a has-been who's come to United. And I understand why United fans thought that, because United have had a routine of signing these players from big clubs who were supposedly, quote-unquote, past their prime. We've seen that with Cavani. We've seen that with Rafa Varane, you can say, to a certain extent, even though he's 29. So he's at his peak now as a central defender. And even with Casemiro, like, he did not seem like the kind of player that United needed, which was... And every fan has this fascination because FIFA pe sab log ko young players ko scout karke sign karna hai. But that's not how real life works, right? Like, you can't get... proper performances, guaranteed good performances from young players, even though they have a lot of potential. But with Casemiro, you've got somebody who knows what it's like to play in the big games, who knows what it's like to win, who's played under some of the best coaches in the world, so he has that work ethic. And for him to come to United, for him to agree to come to United was a big deal because of where United were at the time. But he has taken that role and he's made it his own. Like, even Paul Scholes said that he is the closest to Roy Keane that he's seen any United player since Roy Keane, and that is high praise.
That is high praise. I think I disagreed. I think even when he was signed on, I think we had this debate earlier on that I disagreed with people who said that he's unnecessary at United, because his emphasis on youth forgets the one important thing which happens a lot in football, which is calmness.
Yeah,
I think he's someone who's won.
Yeah,
right. And I've seen Liverpool suffer with not having players who know how to win. So when they reach the big stages, they tend to either panic or press all sorts of wrong buttons.
Yeah.
And these are great players. Forget the younger players. These are players who are great players. Whereas Casemiro, having won everything, he's won with superstar players. He's lost form with them and gotten back.
Yeah.
So he knows winning of all types.
Yeah.
The burst through a season winning, the grimy, gritty wins,
the
lose of form and come back to winning.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, whether it was Varane, whether it was Cavani, whether it's Casemiro, I think these sort of players are super important in any club that wants to rebuild, only because you need people who know how to win at any situation.
Correct.
And so despite their skill being a shade less than what they could have been at their peak, it's important to just bring that mentality. I think Ronaldo was a gamble for me that United took in that direction. That is, you get someone who's a serial winner.
Yeah.
It didn't work out, but this is clearly the gamble that worked.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see the benefit. I don't think it's a coincidence that at currently the biggest stage United have been in, he's the one who scored. He's the one who brought on a sense of calmness in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And it's clearly paying dividends. Or whatever.
And I want to just say this with the Ronaldo comparison that you brought up. Like, the thing with Ronaldo was, like, he also is a serial winner. He's also supposed to be super professional and he can add so much to any team. The problem with Ronaldo is he's got a massive ego and he plays for himself.
Yeah.
Whereas with Casemiro, that's not the case. Casemiro plays for the team. He's a proper team player. To the point where even when he was at Real Madrid, he was never the main part of that midfield. Everybody focused on the brilliance of Toni Kroos and Luka Modric next to him.
Yeah.
And having those players next to him, a lot of the concerns that United fans had were, but what does Casemiro bring to the table? You know, even at Real Madrid, he had Kroos and fucking Luka Modric. We don't have that here. Here, he's going to have to be next to Scott McTominay and Fred. What does Casemiro bring? But now, seeing him play for United with these players around him, we actually are seeing what Casemiro brought to the table even at Real Madrid. Yeah. Even though Kroos and Modric were taking all the plaudits and they were getting all the accolades, it was Casemiro who was holding the ship together, who was quietly going about doing his job, whether it's defending and helping out the centre-halves or whether it's breaking down play in the middle of the park and putting the ball ahead to start a counter-attack. he can do everything, and he is an absolute professional. Now, here's a great stat about him. He's played 17 cup finals in his club career, and he's won 16 of them. That's a 92.86% win percentage in cup finals.
And I'm saying, he probably has won all sorts of cup finals.
Yeah.
There is not a single type of variation of a cup final that hasn't been played in the last 25 years that he hasn't experienced, and he brings it. And I think we've discussed this in previous episodes that there is always broadly in every midfield trio, I think there's scope for two superstars and one person who quietly does the job.
Yeah.
Whether it was Wijnaldum in that Liverpool era, whether it was Busquets in the Barcelona era, there's always that one midfielder who doesn't get credit.
Yeah.
And maybe rightly so. And maybe you need that one person to stay away from the headlines and the limelight who will quietly do their job. And I think Casemiro is doing that again, what he did at Real Madrid, and he's bringing that. I think Fred has improved considerably.
Oh, mad.
Probably one of the most improved players from last season.
Yeah.
With him, with Casemiro, sort of, again, it is probably bringing calmness. I'm sure there's some coaching techniques that have changed, but broadly just keeping the players calm.
Yeah.
Just bringing that energy of we will win this.
Yeah.
That we could be losing and we can still come out as winners at the end of the day without needing luck.
Yeah.
With just sticking to process.
Yeah.
And that's what he brings into this United game, and he could clearly see that.
Absolutely. And it was Rashford, of course, who else, who got the second goal, even though it was given as a Sven Botman own goal because his deflection ended up bamboozling Loris Karius. What do we feel about Loris Karius' performance in this game, though? Because before the game leading up to it, we were all very happy or not so happy about the fact that Karius was going to be in goal because of the circumstances regarding Nick Pope's sending off. He was pretty assured in his own performance.
I think there's a way. This is the goalkeeper that he was supposed to be. In that he was never going to be the greatest keeper.
Yeah.
But he was going to be a good, reliable keeper.
Yeah.
And of course, there was that blip in 2018, which of course affected, I think, probably 4 years of his career. But I think from now on, this is the kind of keeper you can expect from him. From his performances, is that reliable. He had one or two exceptional saves. He had one or two fumbles, but a standard, reasonable keeper who's probably a good backup. He can play for a mid-sized team. And I think that's who he is. I don't think he was exceptional, but he did make a couple of exceptional saves.
He did.
He wasn't particularly atrocious, but he did have fumble a little bit.
Yeah.
And he couldn't save the really exceptional goals and whatever. I think this is it.
I mean, he couldn't have done anything for the Casemiro goal. I think that was just a well-worked goal. And even for the Rashford / Sven Botman own goal, I feel like his positioning was just slightly off. Like he bent down a little too much, and when the ball deflected, it was a little hard for him to reach the ball. But again, that's not a error. Like that's not a Karius level error considering the errors that we've seen him make. There was one nervy moment early on in the game when Botman headed the ball back to him, and he was just a little bit ahead of the ball, so he had to go back to catch the ball. It was just a little bit nervy.
But that's forgivable given that even after 2018, this is his first performance for an English team, and it happens to be at one of the biggest stages for both clubs whether it was United or Newcastle. It was their biggest stage in a while, and I think it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of fate that he happened to be there, and I think he did exceptionally well for someone being at that stage, given the tragedy and the history of what happened to him and the kind of down that his career took after that.
I think we have to also mention that his life in footballing hell started in the 2018 Champions League final when he made those two high-profile errors, right? But he was concussed.
Yeah, he was.
So I think we don't mention that enough because it's very easy to make fun of a goalkeeper who's made terrible errors and hold it against him for the rest of his life and make him a meme. And it's great content for us.
That's pretty much my school life. I never meet my school friends because there was that one day I did bad goals and they still remind me about it.
So, but he was concussed, and I think that needs to be mentioned. I loved the fact that after the victory, after everything was done, and when the players go to take their medals, of course, Newcastle United, the playing staff and the non-playing staff, went up first to get their runners-up medals. I found it incredibly endearing to see Amanda Staveley, who is one of the owners of Newcastle United and this new Saudi ownership, handing out medals to everyone and kissing everyone on the cheek. Literally each and every player. She went, handed them the medal and gave them a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. Literally everyone. She did that all the way till Eddie Howe. Management, assistant coach, goalkeeper coach. Sabko puppy diya usne. And it's very easy to say auntie ekdam turkey ho gayi hai, but it was just so endearing. It was such a mom thing to do.
It was an energy that you don't see in football, which was, I think, even as fans, it was slightly strange to see. Like, this is actually a normal thing, but because of the environment it's in, it feels slightly awkward and strange.
Footballers need love too.
At the highest level, but it was kind of endearing. And I think, which is actually what I wanted to discuss, is that we have to talk about Newcastle reaching a final so quickly under Eddie Howe. And I think one of the things that I liked about this final is that while it did feel like a very old schoolish final, Manchester United, Newcastle, sort of a Carabao Cup. I think it's one of the last times we'll ever have sympathy with Newcastle, because it's one of the last times they'll ever be underdogs. You know what I'm saying? After this, you'll never hear the Newcastle underdog narrative, because right now they still have your Matt Ritchies, Sean Longstaffs, Miguel Almiron, Loris Karius, who's still an underdog story that you sort of root for. Eddie Howe is still, I think he got about 250 million, but relatively he has an underdog air about him. And it was something you were still rooting for Newcastle, as that last season they were still relegation threatened. This season they've reached a final. And I think for me, that was the bigger, not tragedy of this game, but that was the more heartening parts of this game, in that, this is the last time I'll ever see Newcastle with this light.
This is Man City being managed by Mark Hughes under the Abu Dhabi ownership. This was that period. This was that the intersection of the Venn diagram there.
Yeah, exactly, right. And and for a fact that this Newcastle team is going to appear in a lot more finals. They're going to be a lot more controversial coming forth. They're going to be less hard. For a fact that next time they're in any final or an important game that defines their future, your Ritchies, Miguel Almirons, Karius, they're gone. To the point even Eddie Howe might not be there. Right? So I think it was nice to see this sort of Newcastle. Was heartening to see them put up a fight. Still all heart, even though I think Trippier and co are still there, and they were the sort of big buys and big investments. I think that to me was nice, because there was something about this Newcastle United and Man United final that feels like there was a lot of heart in it. Because the big superstar players haven't yet come. And from henceforth, it will be that.
I hope that's not the case though. And I hope that the Saudi Arabian ownership has learned from what Qatar has done with PSG. And it is a blueprint of failure. Where you can't just pack your club with superstars and expect to suddenly.
On the other hand, PSG, for what they're worth financially, they've sold the jerseys. There's some amount of sports washing has happened, but also they've dominated France. Nobody watches French football anymore.
But they were dominating France even before Qatar.
Sure. Now it's a clear in an exercise. Okay, there is
the problem with the French league is, the only teams that were going to give any sort of competition to PSG before Qatar were Monaco, Lyon and Marseille. And all three of them have been run to the ground with poor ownership. Right? So they are not really competing anymore. So PSG, it's very easy for PSG to win the French league, and even they don't consider that as an achievement anymore.
Sure. No, what I'm trying to say is, before we take away from Newcastle's achievement, I think it's the idea that there is no chance any billionaire, let alone Qatari oil-heavy billionaires or the Middle Eastern states that take over, are going to be happy with heart and civic pride. That's not the investment. That's what the investment returns are looking for at the end of the day. So they're going to get superstar players. They're going to pump in. They want the jersey sales. They want the sports washing. Whereas I think this is the last time. I think every football fan should enjoy this moment and should have enjoyed this final, because this is the last time Newcastle will come into any conversation as an underdog. And I really felt happy for Matt Ritchie and co. I can't think of any Matt Ritchie, Sean Longstaff and Karius. These are the three players that come to mind. But I'm sure there are more such players within.
Jacob Murphy,
maybe Callum Wilson even, right? These are players who won't get such a big stage at a Qatari club. So it has something warm about this whole thing. And it was nice to see.
On that note, did you see Wout Weghorst's celebrations after United lifted the cup? He was fully into the celebration. He was killing it. He was singing all the chants with the fans. At some point, he just sat down on his hunches and just looked at the fans with a big smile on his face. It was just so heartening to see, because his story is also really, really cool. So he's obviously contracted to Burnley, right? He's still a Burnley player. He's on loan at Man United from Burnley. And last season he was in a relegation fight with Burnley. They of course got relegated, so then he was shipped off to Besiktas on loan. That loan was then cancelled. He's come here. He's 30 years old and this is his first major trophy in his club career.
Yeah.
And he's just said that I'm so happy to be here. I never thought that I'd be here. It's always been a dream to play in these cup finals. It's always been a dream to play for a big club like Man United. And I just want to thank Erik Ten Hag for giving me the opportunity to realize my dreams.
And exactly. And I know this might sound off to you as a United fan. And I actually might mean this as a compliment rather than this thing. But this is also the last time United might seem like a heartwarming underdog story.
With the possible Qatari buyout.
It's not just with Qatari bid. With Erik Ten Hag, that itself will change the narrative around United completely, or the Manchester clubs completely. But around the idea that from now on, if United become a winning machine, as they do seem to look like, this is the last time you'll have stories of like Rashford's coming off of an injury and he's suffered so much in the last 2 years with English media. It's nice to see him, even though it wasn't his goal, but him playing such a crucial role. Whether it's Casemiro, he might not last out too many seasons if they want to be a winning machine, because now players have within the club who are sort of from the club have experience winning, so now they become the experienced one in future iterations of the club. People like, you're not going to hear such stories from United any longer, right? So I think it was nice to see that two clubs are definitely going to be very machinery in both in terms of winning and PR beasts from now on. Play their last heartwarming underdog final, where both were underdogs. So I think that's what I really enjoyed as a neutral about this final, because I'm going to hate both of them from next season.
Oh, so you don't hate them now?
I don't. I think there was a way as a neutral, like keeping Liverpool by my side, I could enjoy the final for what it meant. Like I said, I'm supporting Matt Ritchie like nobody's business.
United also knocked out Barcelona out of the Europa League, which was just so nice to say, because in the lead up to that game, Xavi was talking about Man United and he said, Erik Ten Hag is doing a great job at Manchester United. He's got all the players playing so well, like Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, the Portuguese guy. And we took that shit personally, because Bruno played the game of his life. At one point, he even slammed the ball into Frankie's dedong, right, and which caused a little bit of a brawl. And then the United handle also, after beating them, tweeted a photo of Bruno Fernandes saying "our Portuguese guy."
That's good. That's
that was just great. It was really great to see that happen, because again, United went down 1-0 in the first half, soft penalty, but still one could say correct call. But to come back fighting in the second half like that and commit to the turnaround and make it happen. We saw that in the first leg as well. Again, we went 1-0 down, went 2-1 up, and then unfortunate last 73rd minute goal by Rafinha from long range, which just confused everybody. But this time around in the second leg at Old Trafford, fans behind them, Ten Hag also got the fans going before the match. This finally feels like a squad that is worthy of trophy challenges now. And in the previous years, under previous managers, there's always been that glimmer of hope, that glimmer of promise, which dies out really fast because of the field issues that players have had with each other. Ten Hag has finally, he seems to have laid down the law. He seems to have shipped out all the bad eggs, whether it's Pogba, whether it's Ronaldo, whatever it is. He has laid down the law, and now everybody who's playing for him knows their job and is invested. Even somebody like Harry Maguire, who's been benched for the majority of the season, but is still club captain, was with the players. He was with the fans. He was singing with the fans. Because that's what it means to somebody like him as well. He knows that he's not playing well enough to warrant a starting place, even though he's captain, and he accepts that. And that's purely down to the respect that Ten Hag kind of commands.
Enjoy this while the last time I probably feel
I can't wait. I can't wait for next season when we actually are putting up a stronger challenge and you hate us, because I feel like there's no conflict between us today.
It's because like I said, I think the reason I'm not trying to bring out a conflict here, one is because, like I said, it's the first final in many years, and as a Liverpool fan, I know what it's like to win something after many years. And you don't want to be shitting on that moment, and I know it's something heartwarming. And like I said, I genuinely, even though I was supporting Newcastle, but not because I didn't because I'm not a fan of United or I want them to lose, but because I really think Newcastle United were the clear underdogs in this. And there's a very brief glimmer of time where you are a billionaire, but you also get sympathy.
Yeah.
No, you be the underdog. Right?
Yeah.
You forget sympathy, but you get to be the underdog, and this was that final.
Right. From one billionaire owned team to another, and there's a lot of them in the Premier League. So let's go from the Carabao Cup to the Premier League. Spurs beat Chelsea 2-0 in the London derby. Of course, a heated rivalry between Spurs and Chelsea. But Graham Potter's problems continue, man. Chelsea again failing to register a win, again failing to score. It's not looking good for Chelsea.
It isn't. They do look like a team who just have forgotten how to score.
Yeah. They're
I think
currently 10th in the league with 31 points, 3 draws and 2 losses in their last 5 games. This is not good. They have a goal difference of -2. There's a great stat here which says that they have 6 goals in their last 12 games, and this is since 5th of November. That's just terrible.
Yes, and that's terrible. And this is weirdly a problem that Potter had even at Brighton, that he was struggling to get teams to score. And I understand. I think they have Christopher Nkunku, who's supposed to come, but I think he's out on loan and he's probably going to be their striker. So I don't know if it's a bit of bad luck that, like Potter, who can create systems, but he can create systems that can hold a defense but can't score goals. Is missing a striker. Maybe that's a bit of bad luck, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think if you're at that level, you need to have a backup plan. You need to be able to adapt your system to make goals happen.
Absolutely.
I think this is clearly a team that struggled to score any goals. And I think when they press the panic buttons and try to get forward and try to make something happen, they just
open up at the back. Let's talk about the goals. Yeah, let's talk about the goals, because the first goal was Oliver Skipp's first ever goal for Spurs. And what a goal. What a strike from outside the box.
That was a mad swing. It's one that the video editor for the Premier League this season will be like, thank you for giving me the forward, because it's a clear taker. When the base drops, that's the goal. The show. It was a stunning goal.
Absolutely. But there was a defensive problem there, because the first shot is blocked by Kepa, and even though he doesn't collect it properly, it's still within his perimeter. And there were Spurs players piling on the pressure, but there were more Chelsea players in that defense around Kepa. And Kepa had the time to collect the ball. But Enzo Fernandez was the player who kind of panicked over there and took the ball away from Kepa to clear it. And he didn't even clear it well enough. He cleared it straight almost to a Spurs player who passes to Skip, who shoots it.
Yeah, and I think the clearance was the wrong thing to do, not just because it was a weak clearance, which is shit, but also because Chelsea team was clearly scrambling. Whereas if the goalkeeper collected it, there's at least 5, 6 to 10 seconds to collect, reorganize, get into positions you've played for. Whereas when you're clearing it, you're just basically being a thudda and you're hoping that someone, it goes to the right. It was a blind clearance. You could see it wasn't even a well-timed or calculated clearance. It was just a random thudda that has to go somewhere, and his best bet was that it goes outside.
Absolutely.
And what's the point of that decision if your goalkeeper can collect it and give you the same sense of calmness?
Exactly. And do you think that should bring his value down from 105 to 5 million?
105 to 104 maybe.
Because that definitely seemed like a 5 million pound clearance.
Yeah, that seems like I'm playing with Sean Dyche and whatever, clearing at the last 91st minute because my team happens to be winning 1-0.
Yeah. Harry Kane, of course, was the player who got the second goal for Spurs. Typical tap-in from the 6-yard box following a corner. Meat and potatoes for somebody like Harry Kane. But let's talk about Hakim Ziyech, because that was the big talking point also from this game. Around the halftime interval is when things kind of kicked off with Richarlison and Hakim Ziyech. Not a very good tackle by Ziyech, but the aftermath of it, the skirmish that happened after that, do you think that should have been a red card? It shouldn't have been overturned because of his push on Emerson Royal?
So I thought it was a very harsh red. I thought it was a very clear worthy of yellow. I thought it was a red. It was a little harsh because there was some element of being provoked. I don't think it was. I mean, I don't know, all of this doesn't go into account, but I think there were 2 yellows instead of 1 red there. I think it was fair enough to say that there were 2 yellows, and I think
what I think is the VAR got it right in terms of overturning the red card decision, because it wasn't a red card. He just wanted to push the guy away, and he missed and he touched his face. It's not like he went for the face, but the referee was right there. The referee was literally there. I don't know why this needed to go to VAR in the first place. I think that's why they call it a clear and obvious error. It is a clear and obvious error by the referee. But he was right there.
Yeah. It was, I thought it was just like a piss poor lack of composure from Ziyech. Like, remember when he first came, he was touted as this like player who's going to revolutionize the league and he's going to teach you how it, like, he was almost considered the next superstar, right?
Yeah.
And he turns up, he hasn't been as great. Again, he's been good, but not as great as he was started to be, and fair enough that, a player takes a season or two to settle.
Yeah.
This is a season or two later, he's getting riled up by Richarlison of all players. Richarlison or whoever the other player, I think it started with Richarlison and then it sort of spilled over.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm more disappointed with Hakim Ziyech in terms of such poor composure, and at that level, you're expected to have composure. I think he's come from PSG or he's come from a really top club.
He came from Ajax. He was supposed to go to PSG this season on loan.
So he's in that league. He's clearly in that league where billionaire clubs want him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has something to do with Potter and the frustration of the club, but you need better.
I just feel that Hakim Ziyech he just doesn't seem like a player who'd get into a fight. He looks like such a pavam guy, he just looks like such a simple, sweet, doesn't talk too much, doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't even shout on the pitch. He seems like that type of player. I
completely disagree. He seems like the kind of player who is like sort of so arrogant, like he thinks he's too above all of this shit.
Arrogance is fine.
Which is why he seems like when someone puts up a fight, he can't take it, and that's why. And I thought it was just poor composure.
I feel like the arrogance is there, but his arrogance comes out in, you're fucking around with me, I'm going to nutmeg you. Like, that's where I will fight. Like, that's how I will put my point across. That I let my feet do the talking. He doesn't seem like the type of player who's going to actually stand up to someone and get into a fight because of how power he looks. Secondly, he's a sukadya. Like, he should not be getting into fights because he'll get his ass whooped.
No, so that's the thing. So I get the complete opposite vibes. I agree with you that he does look super not even lanky. He just looks super skinny. He doesn't look like
him and Riyad Mahrez are of the same ilk. They're the same skinny wingers with a lot of skill.
Yes, but
who should not be getting into fights.
Except Riyad Mahrez looks like he knows he shouldn't be getting into fights, and he should do his feet, like he should let his feet do the talking. This guy looks like that one skinny, good player who's always getting into a fight, doesn't know when to stop.
Yeah.
And it's just really bad composure. It's a derby game.
Yeah.
If you win, nothing like it. You can't lose and get into a fight and have a red card. Like, it's terrible. I thought. This is just, I don't like it's such bad players. They're such bad composure.
In true Chelsea fan fashion, of course, Graham Potter's now getting death threats. His family is being threatened as well. So,
Sorry, I don't know why I find that funny.
No, we don't find the fact that he's getting death threats funny. I think we find the fact that the Chelsea fans have retorted to type hilarious, because what else do you expect from Chelsea fans?
What else do you expect from Chelsea fans? And I think they're also confused because by now they're like, sack him now.
Yeah.
They're like, why is he being sacked?
They're not used to this.
Genetically coded in that they have to get rid of the manager, and they're like, okay, if we can't sack him, kill him. Like, that's their strategy. If you can't sack them, kill him.
Roman would have done the same thing to the fucking Russian oligarch.
So, it's disgraceful, and Potter's a manager who deserves some time, some credibility.
On that note, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about Liverpool's droppage of more points against bogey team Crystal Palace. We'll talk about Leeds in their fight against relegation, and we'll answer your questions. Welcome back to the Corner Flag, everybody. And as always, we begin the second half with some questions. Questions with the Corner Flag.
Dude, answers also, huh?
Okay, this time around, Mukesh has jumped the gun, which has been edited out of the podcast, so you will never know what actually happened. But it is my job to tell you, my job as host Mukesh, to tell you that today Mukesh will be taking the questions, not me. So welcome Mukesh to the questions segment.
Yes, the reason I'm taking questions is because most of the questions are about United. So, I think it's just nice that Amogh having experienced victory. Yeah. Nice to experience the questions like he was a real manager.
Yeah. So wait, I'm not. I am a real boy.
The reason it's called fantasy manager. Yeah. Okay,
is this real life or is this just fantasy? We did a Bohemian Rhapsody last episode, so it's fine.
Did. Okay, guys, I think it's time we throw Amogh out of the podcast, but that's a separate one. That's a separate conversation. But for now, let's ask him the questions that have come in from this week's listeners, which is Praga_19 asks a question to Amogh, saying, Amogh, How hard did you party? Honest answers only, please.
Oh, dude, it was mad. Okay, like firstly, I was so excited in the build up to the game. Of course, the game was kicking off at 10 p.m. So before the game, at about 8:39 onwards is when my pre-match rituals started. So around 8:39, my wife and I went to my in-laws' place, and I had some Lay's sour cream and onion chips, which were great. My father-in-law had a beer, but I didn't.
Correct, good, because superstitions matter.
Yeah, superstitions matter, right? But it was a party, right? It was a party vibe, right? So then about 9:30 p.m. is when we left from there to come back home. Came back home. I helped my wife cook, and
it's not because he's a considerate man. It's because it's part of the superstitions.
It's the pre-game rituals.
Yes,
pre-game rituals. It was a party, right? This is all part of the party. Once I was done helping my wife cook, I poured myself one beer. And I had one beer over the 90 minutes of the game. And the game was done. My wife was watching the game with me, so the game was done. And I hugged her, and we screamed. I mean, I screamed, and she indulged me. And then we showered and got into bed at about 11:30. So immediately after the game ended about 11. I saw the post-match trophy celebration till about 11:20, 11:45 p.m. we were in bed, and it was mad. It was a school night, right? And I took it too far. Like usually,
and it's a surprise that you didn't wake up with a hangover and you turned up on time.
Yeah, it's great. You know,
wild.
It was wild. It was wild, Praga. Like, I think this is the most hardcore I've gone in terms of celebrations. It was crazy.
Things are wild at the corner flag, which is why the second question is from Fazil Abbas Banatwala. He says, "No questions, GGMU." What do you have to say to that? Gugmu to you too, dude.
Gugmu to you too.
Gugmu to you too.
Yeah, glory and all that shit, man. It's the Carabao Cup. It's first of many. So yeah.
Yep. And PRS MUFC. Oh my God, that's a lot of
which team does PRS MUFC support?
Huh?
Which
Mumbai
team?
United.
Yeah.
PRS MUFC responded, says, "Can this MUFC team do what the greatest pool team of all time did last season? That is win 2 cups." 2 English cups, I guess.
The thing is, I don't know. Let's be very honest. The Carabao Cup was hugely favorable to us because of the draws. We didn't really have to face great opposition throughout this cup run. No disrespect, actually some disrespect to every team that we've faced, but Nottingham Forest in the semis, Newcastle in the finals, it's not really like a challenge, so to speak, or it shouldn't be a challenge for a team like United. However, with the Europa League, with the FA Cup, with even the Premier League, of course, there's a lot more challenges. I'm just very happy that this first trophy is out of the way. So now this team knows what that feeling is like. This team knows that this is a manager who can deliver them the trophies if they listen to him and buy into his system. And this will be a great stepping stone to further success. Whether this season we can win the FA Cup, I hope we can. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We've got West Ham next. West Ham are not really doing well this season, so it should be a game that we win. But we'll take each game as it comes and we'll see what happens.
And which takes us to the last question, which is related to this question. And this is from friend of the flag, Sriram Sambasivan, who asks, "Can United dream of Europa and FA with this squad?"
100%. Because it's a dream. Right? It's a dream. And I think even Erik Ten Hag has said this in one of his earlier press conferences. He said it's fine to dream. Like, the fans' job is to dream. But our job is to be grounded and take each challenge as it comes. So I fully believe that as fans, we should dream about winning every single trophy that we are competing for. We're still in for. If we'll end up actually winning it or not, we don't know yet. It's still too early. Like, we'll just see how it goes. It's a long season. Forms change. Things happen, right? But yeah, as fans, we can dream. We can definitely dream.
And who better to talk about dreaming than world's full-time fantasy manager, Amogh and Mukesh?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it. That's our questions we have for this week.
Awesome. 4 questions, all 4 United questions, which is great. So
changing tides, huh?
Yeah.
Changing tides. All the Liverpool fans have gone silent. Yeah. The banter hasn't come in
at all. So let's talk about Liverpool, because Liverpool and Crystal Palace played out a heavily entertaining 0-0 draw. Mukesh, what was that for you?
Who needs banter when the club is writing it itself? What was that? I just think it's, at some point that someone kicked the first domino. Now I'm just watching the domino fall one after the other. And there's something inevitable about the way this feels. I think before the 0-0, we should talk about the midweek Champions League fixture where Liverpool lost to Real Madrid in an embarrassing manner with 5-2 after being 2 goals up to let 5 goals in. If Real Madrid is clearly, they have this hook over Liverpool, which means that they're never going to be able to overcome it. Because when Liverpool went...
Was that hook what Sergio Ramos was using to hold Salah back and twist his shoulder and dislocate it?
Yeah, I think so. At this point, I have nothing to say to the jokes because I don't even feel like these two teams are equals. It doesn't even feel like a team that we can beat at any time. We can't even beat them when we're on top. We can't even beat them when we're at the bottom and they're on slightly on the... when they're on the lower end. This is a team that even at the lowest will always beat a Liverpool team.
But the real question is, Mukesh, do the fans dream of winning the Champions League? Matters.
I think if there is any team that can lose embarrassingly in the first leg and make a comeback in the second leg, it's Liverpool. But that's probably the most optimistic that I can say. Most optimistic thing I can say. But other than that, it's been a atrocious week for Liverpool in terms of that embarrassing defeat, which had just a clownery of all sorts. And with now this game when Liverpool were just not clinical enough. I think the only positive was that Van Dijk played a full game and he seemed to have... He is the reason, him and Alisson was sort of the reason there seems to be a clean sheet. And Joel Matip was shaky. The midfield with Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think one of the worst halves any fullback has had this season. Forget his own standards. Has had this season. First half, I think it was terrible. And I think the midfield of Keita, Henderson, just, atrocious, like way past their prime.
I mean, one can say that, yes, Henderson is past his prime to a certain extent, maybe even Fabinho is past his prime, but Naby Keita is...
Never had a prime.
He's just never
lived up to his potential, let's say, but just atrociously disgusting and like...
Do you think he's one of the worst transfers Liverpool have made?
I think, this is... Okay, so let's say this.
Liverpool have transferred in Andy Carroll and Ricky Lambert.
So I think this is the worst transfer within the squad for sure. Right? Hands down, this wins the worst transfer within this era. And probably in the last 22 years, definitely in the top 3, top 5. Top 3 for sure. Forget top 5. I think where, again, Liverpool have, like we've discussed issues, there are considerable midfield issues. It's a team that's not scoring. I think Salah hit the bar at some point. But Salah hitting the bar should be like, that's the reason why he didn't score a hat-trick. That's the reason we didn't win against Crystal Palace in a season that's this shit. Atrocious. I don't know what fresh perspective to bring other than the fact that the midfield is shit, forcing the defense to take some risks and forcing the forward line to play really way more behind than they'd like to be. And
I mean, see, the only silver lining that I can give you right now is at least they didn't lose against their bogey team.
Crystal Palace they didn't lose. They just dropped points. They didn't lose.
They didn't lose, right? Because Crystal Palace has always been a bogey team for
and
Liverpool.
They played 2 of their bogey teams. The high end of it, which is Real Madrid, and the low end of it, which is Crystal Palace. And they came out with 1 point from 6.
Hey, wait. The Champions League fixtures, you don't get points.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, whatever. If you think of it as something.
They got 1 point out of a possible 3.
They got 1 point of a possible 3 and an elimination from the Champions League.
Yeah. But that, though, is anyway going to happen. I mean, under Carlo Ancelotti, Real Madrid are a fucking beast.
Like I said, the only positive, or the only real positive I can take back is that the next chapter the where you're trash and when you rise above it, that phase is being written. The trash phase is happening now.
Correct.
Like one phase is over. Like it's done. Like one phase, one cycle of winning. Everything was won over. Now the next phase has to begin. The next phase begins only when the story begins with the team being absolute shit. Right?
Absolutely.
And is the closest I've seen, I think, like Jurgen Klopp has come to being sacked. I think the odds are now 1:20, which I think is the highest or lowest depending on how you see it. And that's where they are.
That's crazy. Let's move on to the bottom of the table then.
I like how in United winning and Liverpool losing, there is no conflict between us. We're all like, they're either good for United or bad for Liverpool, and Liverpool are shit. It's like,
हाँ मतलब after a point कितना और बोलेगा yeah Liverpool is shit, but Liverpool is also like yeah we're shit.
And it wasn't even like there was a controversial decision. I think it's like Liverpool are shit.
Yeah. So let's go to the bottom of the table. Leeds faced off against Southampton, 19th against 20th. Leeds coming up with a 1-0 victory. Junior Firpo scoring the goal in the 73rd minute or something. The big talking point, of course, is Javi Gracia has been announced as the new manager for Leeds. He wasn't in charge for this game because he's still figuring out his work permit issues. But you think Javi Gracia is a good appointment for Leeds?
At this point, maybe not. Maybe because I think you're just coming in to do a rescue job.
But okay, hear me out. He's done a decent job. He did a decent job at Watford. He got them to the Carabao Cup final. They did get beaten 6-0 by Man City, but he still got them to the final. His previous job was in Qatar, I think, where he won the league. So he is a manager who definitely has talent. I don't know if he's the manager for Leeds because from Bielsa to Jesse Marsch, it seemed like such a seamless transition because of the style of play employed by both of those coaches. And I feel like for the squad that has been built by Victor Orta for Bielsa and then for Jesse Marsch, Javi Gracia coming in to that squad is just going to confuse the fuck out of them. And this is the problem that I'm seeing with Leeds because when they signed Bielsa, for example, and as a United fan, I hate Leeds United. You know, like it's a long-standing rivalry. But when they were in the Championship and they announced Bielsa as the manager, even I was like, oh fuck, that's a great appointment. Like everybody in the footballing world was like, oh fuck, they got Marcelo Bielsa in the Championship. What the fuck? Yeah. Came close to a promotion, didn't win it because of the playoffs. Second season under Bielsa, they did get the promotion by winning the Championship. They did decently in his third season in the Premier League. The fourth season is when it all went to shit. And when they eventually pulled the plug on the Bielsa project, they had Jesse Marsch lined up. So they were already scouting Jesse Marsch. They were already figuring out his method of play. They already knew that he was going to be a seamless fit into the system that was set up by Bielsa. So when Marsch came in, the way Leeds were playing under Jesse Marsch was seamless. Like it didn't seem like Bielsa was not there anymore. It was the same level of intensity. It was the same level of pressing. It was the same level of fucking batshit crazy Leeds United football.
Yeah.
But when they pulled the plug on Jesse Marsch, they had no plan. Like it just seemed like they had no plan at all. And I say that because one of their interim coaches was Chris Armas, who was at Man United under Ralph Rangnick and was atrociously bad.
Yeah, no, I think this seems like Leeds is running out of creativity and solutions.
Yeah.
And I think Leeds at some level is still a small club.
Yeah.
Right? When they start behaving like a big club, you know, with these quick hires and fires, they can't afford that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to, if you really believed in Jesse Marsch as the successor of Bielsa, as we all believed it, and he did show some promise, Leeds is not at that level where they can take top flight football for granted.
Yeah.
So they are going to get relegated. The threat of relegation is going to feel real.
Yeah.
So I thought sacking of Jesse Marsch for me was the officially ending of Leeds as a club that could, like a Brighton or a club that does Brentford even, that has a clear philosophy that rises above, that always punches above their weight. But clearly now they're just a Watford type club that
but
they come in, it's fluke.
I feel like with Javi Gracia, I think the one thing he can do is probably save them from relegation this season. I think that is the one thing that I would possibly give credit to him for. Because on the other hand, Southampton look like they're definitely getting relegated. Like they've beaten Chelsea in the last game week when that was a fluke one-off, I felt.
Yeah.
But they are playing terribly. There is literally no team spirit in that team.
There's no spirit in the team. Forget it.
Team. Like watching them play is depressing. Like we can as viewers feel the depression that is going through the entire club and city of Southampton. I feel. So I feel like they're definitely going down. But I feel like Leeds can save themselves with Gracia. And it might be Southampton, Bournemouth, and I don't know who the third team
Everton.
No, I feel like Dyche will save Everton as well.
No.
So I feel like Leeds and Everton will save themselves. Maybe West Ham go down. Maybe Moyes his golden touches has waned off.
Either way, I think this is for me. I think my love affair with Leeds has ended now. I just don't care whether they go up or not because there was still some of that romanticism left in football when Jesse Marsch was hired.
Yeah.
For whatever he stood for, whatever he didn't stand for.
Yeah.
It was nice to see him at the club, and now it's not. They might postpone relegation by a season.
Yeah.
Which is what I think you're trying to say is that if not this season, but you know for a fact they will get relegated next season if they continue with this sort of manager. I don't think Garcia is known to have a very clear vision.
No.
He's a guy who can turn up. He's an executioner. He can come do something, turn up. He's a face, but it's not a team with an identity.
Correct.
And I think so. They might save themselves this season, which also I heavily disagree with.
I
but I think next season they're out.
No, I actually feel they are a team with an identity. It's just that Javi Gracia doesn't have that identity.
Yeah, he doesn't have that identity. And
that's not his.
And the minute you have a manager who lasts for a season, that identity will get diluted. So I think they can postpone relegation to next season, but I think it's irrelevant.
Let's go back to the top of the table because Arsenal are still top of the table with a 1-0 victory over Leicester. Trossard's first goal was a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
But it was disallowed by VAR because Ben White was holding Danny Ward's arm. मतलब हाथ पकड़ के नाना नानी पार्क में जा रहे थे वो लोग.
Yeah, that was, I mean, because the goal was fantastic.
It was a fantastic
That was
goal.
Ben White depriving of Trossard of a great goal because I do feel like it would still been a goal had he not held hands. It might have been. I feel like it could have been a good goal.
Yeah, it would have been a good goal.
Good
still. It's not like Ben White holding.
Could have done something.
Yeah, holding the goalkeeper's hand was
something exceptional.
Didn't add anything.
Yeah. So the only bet was something exceptional.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Arsenal fans, and I read a lot of this on Twitter as well, because the Arsenal fans were absolutely okay with that VAR call. Like, you know how when a VAR call goes against your team, all the fans are like, oh fuck VAR, how can they do that? They weren't like that. Like, I actually saw a level of maturity from Arsenal fans. They're like, yeah, that's correct. That goal should not have stood because it was a clear foul.
I know, it's the maturity you have when you know you're going to win the league anyway.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I remember being damn mature when Liverpool was winning.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
I don't think you were.
Shut up. You watch when Liverpool lose. You watch how I am when Liverpool
Yes,
starts
shut up.
losing.
That is the greatest fucking retort of a mature person. Shut up. But the same fans were also then in an extension of that maturity called on VAR to be like, why didn't you then check the Saka penalty shout?
Yeah.
Because that was a penalty.
That was a penalty. I think
It was off the ball. He was bundled down from behind. Like, that should have been a penalty. The only excuse that I can think of from the VAR's point of view is that if they felt that he went down too easily. But
you've seen attackers go down easily because they want to prove that it's a penalty, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those things I think VAR should have picked up. Should have been a penalty.
It should have, because it was off the. And I've seen those penalties given.
Yeah.
So where is the consistency? And you've made a correct call like earlier on in this very game. How have you then not done it the second time?
At the end of the day, it's okay. Arsenal are winning. Don't need more. Yeah, they don't need more. Let some things go against them. Let something.
I mean, you think that Arsenal are going to win? The jury's still out on that one. They're still in the lead, but Man City are giving them a tough race. Like, they are on their asses. They're just waiting. They're clipping at the heels. They're waiting for Arsenal to fuck up, which they will. Every team will drop points. The only team that we know does not drop points when in a title race is Man City, and that's when they're on top. When they're not on top, they tend to turn their season around, and they've had a shaky start to the season, but they feels like they're turning their season around slowly.
Yeah.
Pep is rotating players nicely now, and it showed in their 4-1 drubbing of Bournemouth away at the Vitality. Great goals all around. Erling Haaland getting on the score sheet again. Gundogan playing very, very well.
Like, just a merciless defeat.
Yeah.
They just didn't care that Bournemouth was like no sympathy.
Yeah,
just
no sympathy
fucking
whatsoever.
cold-blooded stabbing.
Yeah.
Like, it was gross to look at, but also I guess that's how
They
brutal.
were red and black anyway. Nobody's going to realize that there's blood. Stab them.
Just stab them. Clinical performance.
Yeah.
That was excellent.
Not clinical, because they did let a goal go in the second half, so they haven't kept a clean sheet yet again. So that defense is the biggest problem that Man City have right now.
I think this is a Man City team that's gone from playing 95 minutes of excellent football to 75 minutes of excellent football.
Right.
And those 15 minutes that's the most you'll get.
Right.
And that's when you can either sneak in a draw or a win, and that's about it. And yeah, you're right. It does feel like that the defense is the issue, but you just know that in the final stretch, they were going to win most points.
The defense is, and the thing is, they will win the
and with
points.
Julian Alvarez, Haaland,
but
there's probably a way they're going to outscore many teams.
But that's the thing. So they've got great options up front with the names that you just mentioned. They've got great options up front, but it's at the back where I feel that they're exceptionally thin, because they've let Cancelo go. Cancelo's been a great player for them over the last few seasons, and because he had some issues with the manager, Guardiola's done the right thing by shipping him off to Bayern. Like, fair. Absolutely fair. but he was a very important part of that back four. He was a definite starter in that left back position. Now they've got Rico Lewis starting at left back. And he's a kid. He'll eventually grow up into a fantastic player, but he is not, I don't think he's the type of player who can hold that first team spot at this point, especially when they're in the title chase. Because I guarantee you, every team that's going to play Man City, they're going to see Rico Lewis on that lineup. They're going to be like, that's where we attack. That is the weak point. And if that's one of the weak points, you look at the rest of their defense. John Stones, who's been in good form, is injured. Aymeric Laporte has been in and out of injury. Ruben Dias, who was a great signing for them, had a great first season for them, hasn't lived up to that potential yet this season. So he's looking really shaky. And then they've got Nathan Ake, who again is a very good defender. Prone to errors. They're going to be targeting Nathan Ake. They're going to be targeting Rico Lewis. They are going to be targeting even Ruben Dias sometimes, because he is prone to making those mistakes. And on the right back, you've got Kyle Walker, who is a great player, but he's not getting any younger.
So I think this is a nice way to tie up the episode or whatever, because I think ultimately what Man City knows is to win. Whether if they have that in, this is a team which has players, even their peripheral players, who have won the Premier League sleeping. And to be honest, as much of a fight as Liverpool gave them, as they just knew when to win. And I think it is pretty much in their DNA, despite having weaknesses. It's not like these weaknesses didn't exist when Liverpool was the dominating team or when Liverpool was on their heels. This is a team that knows how to win. So even with a weakness of one or two players, I think they know how to wrap up a season at the end of it. And I think with someone like Haaland and Alvarez, it's just only going to be more clinical. And on the other hand, I still feel like Arsenal's going to win. But where I do feel like Arsenal might lose is when the gap comes down to one game. When it's the 3-point difference or 3-2 or 1, then the gap is that little. That's when I feel like the nerves might get to Arsenal. Currently, it's about Arsenal have a game in hand and they're about, I think, 2-3 points ahead. So it's currently about a 5-point lead if Arsenal win their game in hand, which I think is a very comfortable lead given the last 1/3 of the season is going to come up. But I think if at all, I have bets on City winning everything, because this team just knows how to win. Despite, I get what you mean by they will attack the weak link, but this team has been through this iteration before where they have a weak player who's going to be attacked, but the other team covers up for it. And that's it. But I just feel like Arsenal's still going to win. But fucking City is just too clinical, man. They're just so brutal.
They are brutal. Right. On that note, let us wrap up this episode with our final segment of the show. It's a new segment that we are planning on doing, and hopefully if you guys like it, we'll do more of these. It's called The Debate. Okay, now this is how it works. It's pretty self-explanatory what this segment is about.
We kill each other to death.
Exactly. And debate it in the afterlife. No. The thing is, we'll put up a question and Mukesh and I will debate the question. One of us will be for the question and the other one will be against the question. Eventually, at the end of this, the person who will make the decision as to who wins this debate is our sound engineer, Siddharth. Siddharth, say hello. I don't know if you will catch it on the mic, but Siddharth, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. So I am going to pose the question for today's...
And we need to remind them that these are the most important questions plaguing football. We put to end, you're going to have a very informed, nuanced opinion on the most important debates of football. So Amogh, please take away.
Right. The question for today's episode of the debate is, should Erling Haaland get a haircut or not? Now, I'm going to argue in favor of him not getting a haircut, and Mukesh is going to argue in the favor of him getting a haircut. Now, our judge Siddharth is not really well versed with football. Is that right to say? But you are aware of Haaland.
He thinks it's a country.
Correct. I'm going to refresh your memory and I'm going to show you a photo of Erling Haaland just so that you know exactly what he looks like right now.
Can I also see?
But yes, Mukesh, the floor is yours.
I think he should get a haircut. Is that what my stance is?
This is perfect, because this is exactly what we expect in the first ever iteration.
Yes, because I feel like there were double negatives in your way, the way you phrased it, and I'm like, I got confused.
I'm in your head already. That is exactly what you have to fight for.
I think he should get a haircut, because his most prolific days were at Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund at Holland. Anyway, Haaland at Dortmund was prolific. Was at his most prolific. He scored the most number of goals. That's his lucky look. And I think when you have a lucky look, you should not let go of the lucky look, because football is all about superstitions. And that is why I think Erling Haaland should get a haircut.
Okay. So I respect your opinions, my dear friend, but I think they're absolutely bullshit because it's not like he had the best time of his life at Dortmund. He spent a lot more time at Dortmund than he did in Man City because he's just playing his first season at Man City, so there's a lot more to come. But if we look at his numbers this season in one season, which is not even complete, and we look at his numbers at Dortmund, he's going to beat those numbers. Also, it's not like he had short hair or a different haircut at Dortmund. For a large part of his Dortmund career, he did have the same long hair as possible. Let's go back to the stats. All right, in the 2019-2020 season at Dortmund, he scored 13 goals in the Bundesliga. In the 2020-21 season, he scored 27 goals in the Bundesliga. And in the 21-22 season, he scored 22 goals in the Bundesliga. Of course, 22 goals in 24 games, 27 goals in 28 games, and 13 goals in 15 games. Fairly prolific, I agree. But let's look at his Man City numbers. 27 goals in 24 matches. So, and that's only the Premier League. So it's fair to say that he has hit another level in his goal scoring form, and that may be because of his long hair. I would also like to add that Erling Haaland is from Norway. He's a fucking Viking. And what do Vikings have? Long, lustrous hair. He is from a part of Europe that is known for its Aryan fucking looks or whatever, and he is tapping into that genetics of his. If you cut off his hair, he's like fucking Samson. You're cutting off his strength. It gives him more aerodynamics when he runs. It gives him a fucking lustrous look. It makes him look good, and it puts fear in the defender's eyes as well. So he should not get a haircut.
Yeah, whatever, man. But I feel like if he cuts hair, he'll lose some weight and that'll make him faster. So do you want a faster football player or a slower football player? And I just think a faster football player is going to be much more prolific. And I think that's why your argument is bullshit.
And that's great that you point that out, because a faster football player doesn't mean goals, and Haaland's job is to score goals. So your argument is bullshit. And those are our arguments, dear listeners, to the question if Erling Haaland should get a haircut or not. We now headed over to Siddharth, who has to judge. So Siddharth, who do you think wins this debate?
Okay, so I think Amogh wins this because I've always looked at Nordics with like long hair and conquering the world and everything. Yeah. And that's how I know Haaland. But like, I don't know much about football stats and everything. I know he's scoring goals. But yeah, the long hair really has it going for him.
Yeah, amazing. In your face, Mukesh. Siddharth, who thinks Erling Haaland is actually a Viking. He knows him from conquering worlds and not from football. Knows that I was right and I win the first ever debate. It has been a pleasure wiping my butt on your face. I don't even know if that's a good enough insult.
That's just gross. You Rikishi Fadu.
Oh, what a fucking throwback, dude. Rikishi Fadu is. Oh, what a throwback. Lovely. Right, on that note, it is time to end this episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this episode of The Conflag. If you'd like to get in touch with us and tell us what you thought of this episode, or if you'd like to tell us a new question for the debate in the next episode, you can reach us on our social media. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The Conflag. You can also reach me and Mukesh on our Instagram and Twitter. Mukesh is on Instagram at
Mukesh Manjunath.
And I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Amogh and Mukesh.
And that's because his name is actually Gugmu.
Gugmu, everyone, Gugmu. You can also follow us on our website, which is thecornerflag.in. You can support us by going to buymeacoffee.com/thecornerflag. Any bit of support helps us run the show and keep it going at a decent enough quality. So, it really, really does help us. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And do not forget to give us a 5-star review, because that genuinely helps us. Shout out to Kezad Gurda for composing our theme tune. And until next week, it is goodbye from us. So say bye, Mukesh.
Bye, guys.
And it's bye from me.